To order the Monday, June 5th meeting of the Sykesville Planning Commission, and we have a short agenda tonight, and the first is the approval of the minutes from our April 3rd meeting. I assume everyone's had the chance to read them. Any comments or issues with them? In which case, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Ted, seconded. Seconded by Steve. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye, so the motion is approved and the minutes are approved too. We have a county update as part of our packet tonight. Claire is not here to present it, so I'm assuming everybody has had the chance to read it. Any comments or issues that anybody wants to make about anything in there at this point? No, in which case I think we should move on to our business agenda, which is the Planned Employment Centre PEC preliminary plan review process. Kevin?
So the town staff have begun the process of reviewing the preliminary plan for the Enclave of Parkside. It's the 47-unit townhouse subdivision directly adjacent to the existing Parkside development. We felt like this meeting would be just a good opportunity for staff and for the commissioners to just go over and review the review and approval process for this project, just because we haven't done it in a while, and since it's in the PEC district, it has some weird steps that are unique to the PEC district. So we thought that would be a good use of tonight's meeting, just make sure everyone knows the steps and we're all on the same page. So in the staff report, we laid out a tentative schedule, and again, it's very tentative. This schedule is assuming that each step gets completed in a single meeting. We know that doesn't always happen. We know things come up, things change, so this schedule is subject to change, but we laid it out in the way that we thought we would get things done most efficiently. So that starts with next month's meeting, July 5th. We'll have a presentation from the applicant for the preliminary plan, along with their pattern book. And at that meeting, Planning Commission will review the adequate public facility agency letters. So I'm working on getting all those letters together now, so I should have them by the next meeting. So you guys will review those letters and then make a recommendation to Town Council about the adequacy of the public facilities that will be servicing that area. The following month, August 7th, Planning Commission meeting, we will hold a public hearing at the Planning Commission for the preliminary plan and the pattern book. So this is the step that's specific to the PEC, which is why it might seem kind of strange, but it's unique to that district. The code says in the Planned Employment Center, preliminary plan and pattern books require a public hearing at the Planning Commission. That requires a 15-day public notice to the public. Obviously, staff will take care of that. And then at that meeting, we'll also have a possible ratification of the adequate public facility decision from the prior meeting, which will likely come in the form of a letter with the recommendation for the chair to sign and give to council. Later that month, the following week, August 14th, Town Council then hold their public hearing on the adequate public facilities. So again, the code stipulates that needs a public hearing as well at council. And then they will make their decision whether or not they think the public facilities are adequate. And the reason we put that in at this point in the process is because council needs to make their decision on that before Planning Commission can make a final decision on the preliminary plan. So assuming that council approves the public facilities as adequate on the 14th of August, and then Tuesday, September 5th, Planning Commission will hold their final review and decision of the preliminary plan. So that, again, tentative schedule. Obviously we're under no obligation to make recommendations or take votes before we feel ready. So again, that's why we're saying this is tentative. It's subject to change. Maybe something takes more than one meeting. So this is kind of the schedule we've laid out so far, but by no means is it set in stone. If we have to change it, that's fine. But we just want to make sure everyone's aware of the steps and the order in which we're hoping to achieve all those steps. Now, after saying that too, obviously throughout the process, you guys are free to ask questions to the applicant to better understand the plan. You can ask us questions to better understand the process. And when it does come time to vote on this plan, the commissioners are encouraged to refer to the town code as much as possible. Clearly indicate how the plan aligns with the code or not when deciding to approve or deny the plan. Same goes for any suggested changes that you guys might have for the plan. Those changes should contain some specific reasoning as to how the change would better meet the requirements of the town code. And in the information package, we included the relevant sections of the code from the Planned Employment Center section of the zoning code, and then also the subdivision regulations. And the reason I'm saying this specifically is because, obviously we expect a lot of public interest in this project, so we just want to make sure we're being as clear as we can when making decisions as to why we're making those decisions. It'll just help us, it'll help the public, it'll help the applicant. So we're asking just everyone review the code, ask us questions if you have any questions about it, and just use the code as sort of your frame of reference when reviewing the plan and when making decisions on it. So really, as far as our schedule, the steps, that's all we have. So we just again wanted to make sure we're all on the same page before we dive into this head first and make sure everyone knows the steps.
So the next meeting, which is July the 5th, there'll be a presentation from the applicants.
Yes.
And they'll take questions.
Yes.
The only decision that we might make that night would be on the adequate public facilities?
That's right.
To recommend it to the council?
Correct. Okay. So the applicant presentation isn't required at that meeting, but we figured that would be a good time for them to just say, hey, this is what we have, answer some questions. That way, again, the next time they come, you guys are already familiar with everything. They know what your questions will be. They'll maybe come prepared in the next meeting to answer them. But yeah, the only decision that will be made July 5th is for adequate public facilities, and that would be a recommendation to council.
Okay, and the majority of that, all of that, the letters from the various agencies will be in place at that meeting?
Yeah, so I'm working on getting all those secured now, and I should have them all by then.
Okay. That was my question.
You had mentioned different steps as opposed to other types of plan review or zoning type of review, correct?
Yes.
Did you also mention in the last meeting that the PEC has a different review process than the other?
It really is basically just that public hearing step at Planning Commission.
Okay.
And that's the one, and there's a pattern book requirement as part of the PEC district. Those are two elements that in any normal subdivision outside of the PEC district you would not see.
Okay, I was just trying to bring it all together. So
And at the end of that public hearing, we could make a decision.
You can't make a final decision on the preliminary plan
September
until council,
Says that
approves.
the facilities.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we structured it this way to try to get everything in as efficiently as possible.
So in the sense that meeting is for the public to make comments and for us to take on board comments,
Right.
but not actually to take a vote on anything that particular.
That's right.
Okay, makes sense.
How many public hearings have you all been in? I know some of you have been in a bunch of them, but has everyone gone through one yet? So sometimes they can be pretty charged, and people can have a lot of opinions in reference to one way or another or whatever. And I encourage you to watch your face in these presentations. So I'll just throw that out there as some advice. It's not always easy to do that because you might have an opinion, right? And it may be counter to the person that is speaking. And that's okay. But, everyone gets an opportunity under the sun. So.
Now, having said that, if we know for a fact that what's being said publicly by individuals is not supportable and is not correct, is it reasonable for us to point out the reality of the situation? And I ask that because I know online that on my Facebook feed there's been certain feeds from Moorfield, and there's public comment on that, some of which is not well informed. Are we just supposed to sit here and listen and not? Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Typically, that is the advice that anybody would give during a public hearing. However, I will say that I've seen plenty of times when you see a pattern developing, but from the comments or from the applicant or from whoever, there is no harm in trying to correct that.
Right.
But that's usually when there's multiple comments that you're getting that are under the same theme that you're like, okay, wait a minute, this really isn't reality.
Yeah. Okay.
It's science fiction.
I guess one other these are things that you pick up as you do this once or twice. Another thing is not to try to be super combative in the process. That also can be very difficult depending on wherever the conversation goes. So just some things that we learn along the way.
Steve.
at the end of the hearing, it is ultimately the decision of this commission to be able to have the last say and refute any untruth, shall we say. So We can always wait to
Just
the
wait till
end.
the end.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Public comments closed, and he'll just keep notes and.
And then we can be compatible with each other, right? That's what we so choose.
A lot of head nodding.
I have a hypothetical question concerning the ordinance, and I stress it's a hypothetical question. It's not related to anything that's coming before us right now. But the PEC ordinance, as part of the language of that PEC ordinance, it says that any PEC district has to be within a certain number of feet of Route 32. At least part of it has, not the whole thing, but at least part of it has. And I assume there's a rationale behind that. As a planner, can you perhaps give us a suggestion about what the rationale behind that was?
Again, my only reasoning that I can think of is just because when that district was established, they didn't want it spreading out throughout town. They wanted it in very specific areas, and that was one way to kind of limit where you could place a PEC district.
Further to that, do we know when the PEC came into play? Or the original PEC, was that early 2000s?
I don't know.
Because I seem to remember the town annexed that property.
Right.
That's
Town
right.
annex, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I think it was
annexed
soon
it with
after.
the idea of being in control of the development
Right.
that took place there. And I don't remember at all when it became PEC, maybe when it was originally annexed.
Well, I do have very slight recollection of the early 2000s
Yeah.
zoning for that property being approved. I just don't know what it was called at that time.
Right.
If it was PEC or was the predecessor to this, and that's where the
Distance.
requirement came into play. Just trying to add.
Do you remember roughly whether that was contemporaneous with the language of all of the other PEC sections?
Do not. I
Because-
do not remember that.
The actual existence of the development that's there right now,
At the bottom page.
and the actual access to that particular
When it was amended.
parcel may well have changed in that time. In other words, it may well not have been envisaged that the only access to that parcel would run through a development of 140 odd houses.
I think at that time it wasn't a thought.
Okay, so that does make a
Probably
difference to
not.
the way we might
Yes.
look at
Yeah.
the way it actually is right now. Another hypothetical question. Okay, it's completely hypothetical. If it came up, the idea came up that perhaps the PEC zoning is not really the best zoning for that particular parcel at this point in time, what would be the process for changing that, and who would instigate it? Who might instigate it?
Well, actually, either the planning commission, the applicant, or council can instigate those.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, this was one of the things that I'm sure Kevin was about to touch on when we get to town updates, is that the town is in fact getting ready to approve a contract, or at least the staff is getting ready to present a contract to council for approval to look at the town's zoning and subdivision regulations for rewrite. Now, again, that process is likely to take, between 18 and 24 months. But at the end of the day, that would be an opportunity for us to look at which zoning districts are applied to which parcels and whether or not they should or should not change.
Okay. And the final decision of that obviously is the council, but that presumably would come through this body.
It would, yeah. Any zoning change, if it's begun at council, would have to be referred to planning commission for a report and recommendation, just like a text amendment.
Wasn't that like the zoning text amendment that the Warfield people, it's kind of the same?
The zoning,
Yeah.
an actual zoning district change would follow a very similar
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, okay.
Good, thanks. Anything else that, Steve?
No, I don't think so this time.
Okay, very good. Okay, good, so I guess that's all. Nothing else to present on that, Kevin?
Yeah, for as far as business agenda, I do have some quick town updates.
Okay.
Are we pretty confident that we're gonna get the preliminary plan or by July 5th?
Yes.
Okay,
We'll get it to you guys ASAP. We got it.
perfect.
Just not in time to present it this evening.
Sure.
So we're gonna send it to you guys as soon as possible.
Awesome.
So,
Very good.
And that includes the stipulations that we made in the last
Yes.
one?
yeah, it has the pattern book, the traffic study, the market study, all that's included, so.
Okay,
Good.
great.
Okay, good,
Thank you.
thanks. So that's done, we're moving on to business agenda. To town updates?
Yeah,
excuse me?
town updates, so
Town updates.
quickly, as Joe just mentioned, but I'll just reiterate real quick, so we have a contract pending approval from town council for a contractor to rewrite the zoning and subdivision ordinances. It's with Michael Baker International, who helped us with the comp plan. For those of you who were around during that process, you're probably familiar with them. So, you know, assuming council approves that, we're hoping to get that project started ASAP. It's something that I know Joe's very eager to do. We're all very eager to get that started. So, like he said, it's a 18 to 24 month process. We're hoping to get that going ASAP. Otherwise, Joy Property, just in case anyone's curious, we're still waiting on an official application from them. We have been in communication with them, so it hasn't been, you know, totally radio silent. It's just taking a little bit longer to go through the steps with them than we initially anticipated. But we're hoping to get something official from them soon. As soon as we do, we'll bring it before for you guys for review and recommendation before council then makes a decision on the rezone. So
Good.
Could somebody remind me, Joy Property?
yeah, so it's the old service station or
Oh, okay.
garage up on Springfield
Yeah,
across the street
okay.
from Sykesville Middle. So they're saying they're going to submit an application to apply to have that property rezoned. And we've been talking to them and their attorney, just working through the steps to make sure they have everything hammered out before they officially submit an application. So we're hoping to get that soon. And that'll involve review from the Planning Commission and then a recommendation to council.
Sounds good. We done with that? Nothing else? Good. Anything else from anyone? Any further comments, issues?
Nothing.
No? Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Brandon?
Second.
Seconded by Ken. All in favour?
Aye.
We're done for tonight. Thank you, gentlemen.
Well done.
Okay, that's it. Not quite the quickest, but it'll do.